Hello, fifth graders. Today we're going to take a look at an introduction to long division. We're just going to look at the basic steps on how we can divide big numbers by some smaller numbers by using this process of long division. To begin, let's talk about the meaning of division. It is the inverse operation of multiplication. Multiplication is repeated addition, so the inverse operation means it's the opposite, which does mean that division is repeated subtraction. Now, to solve division problems by repeatedly subtracting is super time consuming and very inefficient. So thankfully we do have this process of long division. So let's talk about the different parts of division problems, because it's really important because if you don't set up your problem correctly, if we don't have the right numbers in the right places, we could be in trouble and we'll get the wrong answer ultimately. So the number that's being divided up is what we call the dividend. The number you're dividing by, the number that you're splitting your thing up into, is called the divisor. The answer is the quotient. And what's remaining, what's left over, is the remainder. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. When we are using our long division symbol, let's take a look at where these different pieces live. So the dividend goes inside of the long division symbol. Again, the thing that's being broken up goes inside of the long division symbol. The thing that we're dividing by, the divisor, goes on the outside of the long division symbol. Our answer, or our quotient, goes up top with the remainder next to it if we have one. And we'll use R for right now to represent remainder. We will eventually, we will look at how to represent it as fractions and decimals, but we're not there quite yet. Now, I had students who really struggled with remembering that the divisor is the part that goes outside, and I had a student come up with a nice little trick. My student at one point a few years ago said, well, Miss Gannon, divisor makes me think about a visor or hat that you wear, visor, and you wear hats when you're outside. And I thought that was a really neat way to remember that your divisor is the part that's outside, because you wear a visor when you're outside, so that might help you remember where that part goes. Now let's talk about when your problem is written horizontally, which a lot of our math problems are. So when we have our numbers side by side, we have to figure out which part goes under the long division symbol. You hear me call it the doghouse. A lot of elementary school teachers teach you that it's always the big number that goes inside of the long division symbol and the small number that goes outside. I'm here to tell you that's not true. It's not always the case that we have the big number on the inside and the small number on the outside. For instance, I could take, and this is just totally an aside, I could take $4 and split it up amongst 5 people. I can do that. That would be 4 divided by 5, which would mean 4 is in the doghouse and 4 is smaller. Guess what? We can do that mathematically. What that means is that you are going to get something less than 1. Everybody gets less than a whole dollar. Everybody will get 80 cents because 5 goes into 4 0 times, but it goes into 48 times, and then a 0 at the end. You bring your decimal straight up. So that's just a totally different piece. So I need you to get out of the mindset of the big number always going inside. That is not true. Excuse me. So when it is written horizontally, so I don't want you thinking about big number and small number. I want you to think about the first number. The first number is the dividend. The first number written goes in the doghouse. And the second number is the divisor. That goes on the outside. Oops, sorry. So it's your dividend, divided by your divisor, gives you your quotient. Okay, that will go inside the doghouse, that goes outside, that's the answer on top. So if we want to go ahead and set this up, let's identify our pieces. This is my dividend because it's written first. This is my divisor, so the 5 goes on the outside, the 450 goes on the inside, and my quotient will be 90. And again, the same process. The first number goes in the doghouse. The first number might be big, might be small. The second number goes on the outside. That goes in 4 times, and that 2 goes into 36 18 times. And again, I'll teach you the process of doing this, of writing this out, but I just want to show you how we set that up. So let's go ahead and talk about what are the steps to long division. Well, the first thing we're going to do is divide. So we have a mnemonic device, D, M, S, B, R. And the way we can remember the order of dividing first, then multiplying, then subtracting, then bringing down, then repeating is the saying, does McDonald's sell burgers raw? That's how, does McDonald's sell burgers raw? DMSBR. That will help you to remember that you divide first, then multiply, then subtract, bring down, and repeat. So let's take a look at an example. So when we're dividing, you need to start in your largest place value. We're going to ask ourselves, okay, how many times does 6 go into 8? Or in other words, 8 divided by 6. Well, 6 goes into 8 one whole time. So we just did our division piece, okay? So that was our division piece. Step 2 is we're going to multiply. 1 times 6 gives you 6. We're going to write it underneath. Next, we will subtract these two numbers. 8 minus 6 is 2. I will bring down the next number. Brought it down. And now we repeat. So we're going to go back to the beginning. Now we divide. 24 divided by 6 is 4. 4 times 6 is 24. I subtract, I have a remainder of 0. Okay, so let's talk about, now that we feel good with the basic process of long division, let's talk about how we might be able to check our work and make sure that our answers are always correct. So as we mentioned already, division and multiplication are inverse operations. And we can check our answer by using the inverse operation of division, which is multiplication. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the quotient by the divisor. So we're going to take our answer and multiply it by the number we're multiplying by, or excuse me, dividing by. And if we get that original dividend, we know our answer is correct. So again, the order is we're going to take our answer, we're going to multiply it by the number that we were dividing by, and if we get the number that was in the doghouse, we are correct. So let's go through another example. I like this, creating columns for ourselves so we can make sure our numbers are nice and lined up. So I'm going to start my largest place value, which is the hundreds in this case. 2 goes into 4 twice. 4 divided by 2 is 2. I'm going to multiply. 2 times 2 is 4. I subtract 0. I bring down. 2 goes into 7 3 whole times. 3 times 2 is 6. I subtract. I bring down the 0. 2 goes into 10 5 times. 2 times 5 is 10. I have nothing left over. So let's check our work. What we're going to do is we're going to take our answer and we're going to multiply it by the divisor. So 235 times 2. I'm going to regroup. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. 2 times 2 is 4. And that's exactly what I started out with, so I know I'm correct. Let's do another problem where we have to set the problem up ourselves. 435 divided by 3. Now remember, it's not about the big number going in the doghouse, it's about the first number going in the doghouse. So this is 435 divided by 3. I'm going to go ahead and create columns for myself just so I can stay nice, neat, and organized. So I'm going to start in the largest place. 3 goes into 4 one whole time. 1 times 3 is 3. I subtract. 1 left over. Bring down the next number. 3 goes into 13 4 whole times. 4 times 3 is 12. And lastly, I'm going to bring down that 5. 3 goes into 5. Or excuse me, 3 goes into 15. Oops, sorry. 5 whole times. Now this is really important. We are going to want to check our work. We're going to take our answer and multiply it by the divisor. 12 plus 1 is 13. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1 is 4. I'm back to my original dividend, which means I got my answer correct. And let's take a look at a real-world application. Clarissa is splitting up 2,856 pennies between her 4 friends. Splitting up is one of those key division phrases. Splitting up, dividing, splitting equally. Those are all phrases that should make you think division. So we're going to go ahead and split up 2,856 pennies amongst 4 friends. So let's go ahead and put 2,856 inside the doghouse, and we will divide by 4. Again, I'm going to go ahead and create columns for myself so I can stay nice and neat and organized. Okay, and we begin. 4 does not go into 2 any whole times. 4 does not fit into 2 a full time. It goes in 0 whole times. Now you could multiply 4 times 0. Now in pencil, I'm going to go ahead and do that, but then I'm going to erase it because I want to show you something. So I could do 4 times 0, which is 0, and I subtract, and I get 2 and 8. 28. Oh, if you notice, that is the same as the number up here. Doing your multiplying by 0 and subtracting 0 is an unnecessary step because it's just going to be the 2 that you had originally started with and the 8 that's going to be next. So what I will allow you to do is skip that step. If it went in 0 times, you can just go ahead and look at this now as 28. 4 goes into 28 7 times. 4 times 7 is 28. I have 0 left over. I bring down the 5. 4 goes into 5 1 time. I subtract 4. 1 is left over. I bring down the 6. 4 goes into 16 4 times. And again, let's go ahead and check our work. Four times 1 is 4 plus 1 is 5. We will take a look at remainders tomorrow, and when we return from Thanksgiving, we'll take a look at remainders in forms of decimals and fractions.